in New Zealand.
Honourable Dr. Jonathan Coleman.
Speaker, it's a complete joke for that member to be lecturing the national government on power prices, because the government she was a part of from 1999 to 2008 raised power prices by 72%. So if she's complaining about the price now, that's because power went up under her government. Under this government, they've only gone up by 16%. So for them to say they've got the answer on power prices, they know that they are dead wrong. And quite frankly, there's a bit of a word for that beginning with H, which would describe anything they say about electricity prices. But these people over here are truly the unelectables. There's no question about that. When you look at the options once David Shearer goes, it's not a very pretty sight. Grant Robertson here today, he was doing his leadership audition. And I must say, it wasn't too bad, really, if you wanted a light comedy routine. But when you team him up with Andrew Little and Shane Jones, you've got three guys there. Two of them can't win an electorate seat, and the other one is completely unelectable as the leader. So I reckon, although they might be happy individually, they're in a pretty bad space. But what I think is really disgraceful is the way they're acting towards their leader. And that Twitter explosion last night, if that wasn't treachery at its worst, and if those denials don't actually signal the coup's on, I don't know what does. But Grant Robertson is pretty happy because he's convinced David Shearer that he's only allowed to answer one question each day. And that's why 37 times since he was elected leader, David Shearer has come into this House and said, Prime Minister, do you stand by all your statements? Does he stand by all his statements? And that's the one question that David Shearer asks every day. And the rest of the time, he's totally dazed and confused. And I think up in the Labour Research Unit, they are pulling David Shearer's chain. They are conning him completely because, quite frankly, they're not giving him a fair go. Grant Robertson there is not supporting his leader. He can't wait for him to go. David Cunliffe was up there today having a go. Who else was there? There was the other fellow, Shane Jones. Shane Jones is suddenly back in the game because he knows the coup is coming and it's all going to be up for grabs. Even Darren Hughes' landlady might even fancy herself as making a bit of a comeback. It could be anyone, but the good news is they are all completely unelectable. So it's good times ahead. The one man they do really want to ban is David Shearer. They want to get rid of this guy, but there's no one there with the steel and the political nerve to actually grasp the chalice. If Grant Robertson was up to it, he would never have let Shearer get that job in the first place. That's the fact of it. Grant can't do the job. What's his name? Shane Jones. He's not up to it either. He had his chance. So really, there is not the next Labor Prime Minister in the Parliament at this stage, and that's a very big problem. But tomorrow we're going to be voting on the Sky City Casino legislation. That is going to be a conscience vote, and I'm looking forward to Phil Goff, Chris Farfoy, Clayton Cosgrove and David Shearer all voting for it, because they wouldn't want to look like hypocrites. You might, and Annette King, because you'd look like a bit of a hypocrite if you went to the Sky City box, if you drank all night, if you ate all night, and you came in here and voted against the legislation.
I have a point of order, Honourable
I was in the House last night when the Chairman of Committees ruled against the use of the word hypocrite. I am surprised, Mr Speaker, you didn't pull the member up, particularly as I could have thrown that back at him as a member who went to a box for the tobacco company when he was a health spokesperson.
Order! The member is quite right. The word should not have been used, and I ask the Minister to stand, withdraw the use of that word.
I withdraw, but I think you get the gist of what's going on. So anyway, these guys over there...
Order. I have a further point of order.
Mr Speaker, he cannot then comment on your ruling.
That's true. Or the member just, now that he has withdrawn that comment, just continue his speech.
I withdraw, but as I was saying, those 4 Labor members were at the Sky City box. So, of course, morally, they are compelled to vote for the legislation tomorrow. Because Annette King, she's for jobs and growth. Phil Goff, he's for jobs and growth. Grant Robertson, he isn't, and he's the only option they've got as the leader for the future. But the more while they get bogged down in things like the man ban, the less they are able to connect with the people of New Zealand. And I can tell you a story. A lady I know in Auckland, a friend of my family, she had a couple of plumbers round the other week, and they said, or it was last week actually, and they said, well, I guess it's the last you'll be seeing of us. And she said, why? And she said, well, the way it's going, if Labor ever get into government, we'll have to only send female plumbers here. So the point of this story is, once the plumbers and the blokes driving the white vans are getting the message that these guys over there are against the blokey tradies, as Shane Jones calls them, these guys have lost. So I think with that man ban thing, they have conscribed themselves to the wilderness for a decade, I say, so it's looking pretty bad for them. Meanwhile, over here, focusing on the economy, best economic growth in the OECD bar Australia, jobless rate down, inflation down, good economic times. We are looking very good. Those guys there are absolutely hopeless.
Leo Fa Amulia, Asanati Lole Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable